The island of Oahu has something that no other Hawaiian island can claim: a prominent place in the great international network of commerce, communication, and culture sharing. A great city. Here, in what used to be a sleepy Polynesian boondocks that people called Ko, we now have Honolulu. The name means protected bay. Southeast Oahu happens to have this natural deep draft harbor. Hawaiians traveled everywhere on surface floating canoes, but Western sailing ships had deep hulls, full of cargo. Here at Honolulu, they could get close to shore. Even today, when the big ships come in, it feels as though they are parking downtown. First, a little thatched village arose. Then, the warrior, Kamehameha, showed up with an army. He conquered Oahu and moved the capital of his new kingdom right here. That move in 1804 marked the beginning of modern Hawaiian history. Near that protected bay was a beautiful beach called Waikiki. The weather was mild here, even arid, thanks to the protection of the Ko'olau mountain range. But the land was a swamp. You couldn't live here. Today, Waikiki hosts 72,000 visitors a day and employs 32,000 Oahu residents. The change came in 1928 with the dredging of the Alawai Canal, which allowed swamplands to drain into the sea. Soil dredged from the canal built up the land that has since become one of the world's greatest resort playgrounds. The beach ends at Le'ahi, Diamond Head, so called by early British sailors who noticed small crystals among the tuff or hardened volcanic ash that formed this cone. Le'ahi exploded quickly some 2 million years after the bulk of Oahu had already cooled and eroded. Similar afterthought eruptions gave this part of the island many odd features. For example, posh Hawaii Kai to the east of Waikiki, framed by Koko Head, Koko Crater, and this crater, which was eventually breached by the sea and has become Hanauma Bay. A completely natural sheltered aquarium. You couldn't imagine a better place to snorkel. Hanauma Bay is protected as a state-managed nature preserve. Anyone can swim here, cruising in a three-dimensional fantasy of fluttering tropical fish. With Honolulu behind us, we round the southeast point of Oahu, Makapu'u, Lookout Hill, one end of a mountain range, the Ko'olau, that faces straight into the trade winds, absorbing the storms that could otherwise fall on Honolulu and Waikiki. Ma'anana, also known as Rabbit Island, is another tuff cone from the same 2 million years later generation that gave us Diamond Head. The bench cut around the base of this highly eroded little two-vent peak reflects the rise and fall of sea levels in Earth's history. Ma'anana is protected now as a state seabird sanctuary. The Nu'uanu Pali, the cliffs of Nu'uanu, couldn't be more abrupt. Hang gliders launch from up here. It's easy to reach this ridgetop from the other side. The leeward side of the mountain tapers off gradually onto Oahu's great central plain. But this side of the mountain has been hammered by wet sea winds with ceaseless ferocity. We are looking directly at the central mass of the original volcano. It's hard to believe, but the continual trade winds and rainfall streams have actually eaten up half of the mountain. Erosion is a gorgeous force. Olomana Peak rises like a two-pronged tropical Matterhorn. It stands at the site of the original caldera of the now crumbled Ko'olau volcano. Once part of the mountain core, it now stands exposed, an erosional remnant that refuses to fall. Anyone who seeks inspiration need only hike to the top of Olomana. We've moved farther north now and are looking back at the two peaks of Olomana silhouetted in the sun, the H3 freeway curving dramatically around the aged cliff. The Pali is dark today, the cliff tops caught up in heavy mists. The brooding mood invites contemplation of the forces that carved such a monumental landscape. When the weather turns like this and the sky unleashes its water, every pleat and fold of the cliffs becomes a streaming cataract that slices a bit farther into the proud stone. Bit by bit, the mountain sloughs away. Nu'uanupali was the scene of a decisive but terrible battle in 1795. That's when Kamehameha landed his armada of war canoes at Waikiki. The Oahu defenders were simply no match for the invaders, who were armed with guns and flush with victory, having conquered all of the Big Island and Maui. Kamehameha's forces pushed the Oahu warriors gradually up and up the mountain on the other side, till they reached this precipice, and then the attackers kept pushing. Many warriors fell to horrible deaths here. After that, Kamehameha was the undisputed king over all of the Hawaiian Islands but one, the island of Kauai. The sea at the base of the Pali is shallow and protected enough to allow coral to flourish. Coral is a minute marine animal that forms colonies by encasing itself in a limestone skeleton. When enough of these creatures mass together to form heads and pinnacles, they create fringing reefs. Such reefs are vital to all sea life, and they are vulnerable to changes in sea level and water conditions. See how the reef swaddles Kualoa Point. When the tide is low, it's possible to wade from the shore out to this small island called Mokoli'i. For reasons that need no explanation, Oahu residents commonly call this islet Chinaman's Hat. Mokoli'i is a sea stack, a remnant of the island, left standing after erosion has cut away softer materials. Kualoa Point juts seaward from the middle of the Ko'olau Range. 3 different valleys converge here, creating this unusual 3-sided ridge. This area is sacred. In the old days, it was a residence for the most honored high chiefs. Today, it is the site of Kualoa Ranch, the largest of Oahu's few working cattle ranches. To make ends meet, the ranch has diversified into tourist activities. There are the remains of an old sugar mill in this area, also a popular park. From the highway, you can see a distinctive shape on the mountain ridge, a landmark that people call Crouching Lion. This is Ka'ava Valley, cut by Ka'ava Stream. The width of this valley indicates how old and weathered this part of Oahu is. In pre-contact days, Kahana Valley was richly planted with kalo. You'll find the remains of over 130 old terraces and irrigation canals here. It is a wet valley, collecting as much as 300 inches of rain each year in the mountains above. The immense and bold design of the Turtle Bay Hilton Golf and Tennis Resort dominates this point, which is just about as far north as you can get on Oahu. At this point, we have reached the other end of the Ko'olau Range, and we're starting to traverse the island's famous North Shore. Most famous, of course, for its epic but only occasional surf breaks, such as Sunset Beach and the Bonsai Pipeline. But the North Shore is good for all sorts of water activities. Even a little roadside cove such as this serves as a snorkeling wonderland, Shark's Cove. Waimea Bay is one of Oahu's classic winter surf spots, delivering incredible waves when the winter swells hit. Not today, obviously. The North Shore surf spots are fairly nondescript from the roadway, but they do get jam-packed when it's showtime. Some of the newest development on the island is happening here on the west coast at Ko'olina Resort and Marina, a master-planned resort community that's focused on families and active living. Disney is creating its first mixed-use resort, the first outside of its theme parks, that is, right here. The developers of Ko'olina have done a skillful job of enhancing the island's natural charms, adding waterfalls and translucent lagoons, not to mention the Ted Robinson-designed golf course, the marina, and the Ko'olina Wedding Chapel. This area is far west of Honolulu, at the base of the Waianae Range. Waianae, with its main crest at Ka'ala, runs parallel to the much longer Ko'olau Range. Because Ko'olau takes the brunt of the trade winds pounding, this western part of the island is in the lee, drier and warmer. And we end our Oahu tour with a reflection on its dramatic role in 20th century American history, a drama that unfolded here at Pearl Harbor. Pu'uloa is the Hawaiian name for this expansive saltwater shelter. Geographically, it is a low-lying confluence of streams that joined and drained into the sea. But sea levels rose, and salt water flooded the low plain. That created a huge sheltered harbor suitable to the needs of the U.S. Navy. And of course, this was the scene of a Sunday morning sneak attack that proved to be a moment of destiny for the United States of America. Two sites here, side by side, are icons of the American experience in World War II. The battleship USS Missouri fought at Iwo Jima and Okinawa, and was the site of the Japanese surrender that ended the war. Today, it is a museum ship. And here is where that war began for the U.S. on December 7, 1941. Over 1,100 sailors perished aboard the USS Arizona when Japanese Zeros appeared out of nowhere and blasted it into the sea. This is a pilgrimage site for Americans. In that same attack, a Japanese torpedo capsized the USS Utah, an older vessel used for training recruits. Heroic action at this site saved many American lives. In Honolulu, you can visit the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific, the burial place for over 25,000 soldiers. The majority of them fell during World War II battles in the Pacific. This is Punchbowl Crater, known to the Hawaiians as Pu'owaina. It's a late emerging tuff cone of the same vintage as Diamond Head. Of all the Hawaiian islands, Oahu is the one where the dramas of history mesh most vividly with the magnificence of natural forces.